Welcome everybody to Be a Better Game Master, and also welcome to Chapter 5 of the Jade Gavel series, Legend of the Five Rings game that Matt Click started and is now playing in, that I am carrying on into another trilogy, and this part is called Eye of the False Scorpion, and let's get started. Akume unravels the scroll in her hands and reads aloud its contents. Subbon no Garu, I proclaim within my charge as Emerald Champion, you are hereby initiated into the Jade Magistracy, under charge of the Emerald Champion and under full protection of the Emperor. May you serve well, Doji Satsume. Before you stands a tortured man with shoulder-length hair, drenched in sweat. And we're going to change here to a place underground, much darker. The four of you are no longer your characters. You are four of many in a chain gang walking up a jade mine ramp leading outward, out from the mine. You've only ever worked in darkness. You sleep during the day, down in the mines. You haven't seen the light in perhaps years. 14, you hear screamed by a man with a long bamboo lash as he brings it down upon you. Move! You're in the front of the chain gang, hauling this load of raw, unrefined jade behind you all up this ramp. The wind blows in your face. Roll me a check, roll those dice for fitness as you're struck by the lash.
1 success.
You stay on your feet. What is it that keeps you up?
14 knew it was coming. It always comes. You can be prepared. They don't like it when you fall. It just slows them down.
15. You see the resolute fortitude of 14 in front of you, and perhaps hope that the lash doesn't strike you. But the person behind you, not directly behind you, but 2 spaces, begins to slip and fall. On his way down, he's able to grasp the edge of this steep cliff, this precipice that the ramp is. The ramp is kind of on the side of this mine, and this precipice goes off the edge, and he grabs onto maybe some ropes or something and keeps himself from falling all the way down. And the slave driver yells 17 and goes over and says, help him. Number 15 and number 16 and number 18, what do you do?
Obey. It's all I can do. It's what I've been conditioned to do. The crack of a whip is enough, and the threat of one. So I obey immediately.
Great. Give me a fitness check, 16.
No success. 2 upper advantages.
You can't quite reach him from your location, but it begins to dawn on you, all of you, that when he falls, the chain gang goes with him. Number 15.
15, kind of reading the situation and not responding quite as fast as the rest, looks down where they are chained together, and he actually grabs onto the chain that actually separates 16 and 17 from each other, and tries to lean away from the guy's fall.
Oh, nice. Give me a fitness check. That'll kind of help him rescue himself as well.
Okay, that's explosive. Okay, so that's 2 successes, 2 opportunities, and 2 strife.
Okay, so that 2 strife is you feel this huge gust of wind coming in from the top of the mine and almost pushing you over into the precipice, but you maintain your ground, you pull back, and you actually begin to help 17 up onto the ramp. Number 18, 17 reaches his hand out towards you, his one free hand, to try to get some help, and the wind begins really picking up. Some sort of wind tunnel here. Roll fitness to help him up.
That's 1 success, 2 strife, and an opportunity. So as I reach toward him and grab his hand with my left hand, with my right, I grab onto the shipment of jade that we're pushing, knowing that it weighs more than all of us. And as I grab onto it, I feel is it like in a cart?
Yeah, sure, yeah, we'll say, yeah.
Or like a bamboo sled or something like that. So yeah. I reach, and as I grab onto this sled, I feel some like splinters and stuff sort of biting into the callous skin of my hand, blood dripping from the hand. But I hold on tight, knowing that this weight is possibly the only thing that's going to keep us up here if we all go over and grab 17's other hand.
You do so, and your splintered hand is holding on to the cart or the rope. Okay, great. So you pull 17 back up safely and kind of look at your hand a little bit, now broken and wounded, and 17 looks and says, oh, I'm sorry.
Better my hand than all of our lives. Don't think
Cut
anything.
the chatter in the back.
We need to keep moving.
He nods. 14. It occurs to you in this moment that the very fortitude that kept you standing is shared by your comrades behind you. You continue pulling the raw jade out through the wind, and you feel rain begin to drop in small droplets, and very quickly it grows. 18, you're the closest to the cart of jade, and you see it's unprotected from the rain, and that it's like as the rain falls upon the jade, it kind of looks like it's drenching it and turning the whole bit of the load black. And then you realize that the jade itself is beginning to become tainted and black. And you look at your hands, 15, 16, 18, 14, and you see that the droplets of rain themselves are black. All of a sudden, it begins storming violently. And this black, unnatural cloud begins swirling above you in the sky. And at once, at a crescendo of momentum and wind, it strikes downward at the mine and enters through your eyes, through your mouth. You are paralyzed, staring upward at this black abyss of a sky. And this dark energy of the shadow enters your body and your soul and takes you completely and wholly. Your lives belong to it. The jade turns black. Your eyes turn black. 17 looks down. All of you feel this burning sensation in your forearms. And 17 looks down, and that burning is this strange brand of an eye directly into his arm, just forming, almost branding him from the inside. The road south is soaked. The Jade Magistrates find themselves in a constant downpour. And there is Mitsukage at the head of the column, on his horse in the pouring rain, sloshing through the mud. And you're staring down at this piece of flesh, Mitsukage. This flesh that you cut from that strange man in the stables. That false scorpion, that blasphemy of a samurai, that nothing. You stare down at that piece of flesh with the eye branded upon it. Have you seen it before?
Only when I encountered this slave, these non-people, when I encountered them. It's the first time I've seen this symbol, and I don't know anything about it. But I know that like symbols are extremely powerful, and that people don't just tattoo symbols onto property for no reason, which is why I cut it off.
You look up from the eye for a moment and you see in the distance, as you're riding south, this dark aura on the horizon, almost like a thick line, the Shadowlands. Hokkaidan, you see this too. Why does it make you upset? What sort of memory do you have of that view, Hokkaidan, that stirs you to feel conflicted or angered?
The bleakness of the Shadowlands reminded me of the intense rage and the drunkenness that I tried to drown that rage in when I came to the Crablands first, after my brother was killed. So this is a stark reminder of literally a darker time in my life.
You think of your brother. You think of what it's like, what your experience has been being of the Lion clan, and almost all but abandoned into post after post after post, unable to seek your true desires. What was the last look on your brother's face that you saw?
One of betrayal. I think one of my personal retinue got in his way as we were fleeing and tripped my brother, and that is why the man who killed him was able to catch him.
You can't erase his face, his slack-jawed mouth, his wide eyes of surprise. You cannot erase your brother and his memory. A blessing and a curse, you suppose. Isawa Akume, you hold in your hand the letter proclaiming this person that you were initially tasked to escort to Taro as an actual Jade Magistrate, presumably one of the final orders from Doji Satsume before he was slain. You remember sneaking out of Kawa at night, your last kind of charge in that mission. What did you leave behind in Kawa, and whether by accident or on purpose, while sneaking out of this bustling city, basically, to leave unnoticed?
Akume left behind a teacup. A teacup that was empty, except for the leaves which she'd read, her own. She left it behind to forget it. She did not like what she saw.
You think about the way those leaves lay upon each other, cling to the sides of the cup in in some ways defying physical laws. And you look to your friend Hokkaidan and see that he is dealing with some internal conflicts as well. And what do you say to him, if anything?
And I think Akume would look at Hokkaidan and then to the letter, and there's an uncharacteristic flush of her cheeks, perhaps embarrassment. It was not meant for us.
He kind of is jolted back to the present. What did you say?
The scroll was not meant for us. It was meant for him. And she'll gesture towards Seppu Nagaru. And then she will turn, and with the scroll in her hands outstretched, she will bow to Seppu Nagaru.
How does Subbon Nagaru take this, who's also on a horse? Actually, what does that even look like? How often does Subbon Nagaru ride a horse?
Rarely, if ever. He rides in kind of a strange way, maybe even overcompensating for the movement of the horse, almost like he's balancing himself on the deck of a ship. After a few hours of riding, he's starting to get used to it, starting to realize that he doesn't have to anticipate the movements so much, but still clearly not comfortable sitting in the saddle. And he often will arch his back, stretching his muscles, or lift himself off the saddle to give his hindquarters a break from getting bounced around on the back of this horse.
And you're handed this scroll by Isawa Akume.
Forgive me, Garu-san. In error, I took the scroll, assuming it was meant for one of us. It was meant for you.
You had no reason to assume otherwise. It's all right. And I would take it. Did you read it aloud, Akume, or have I not heard it yet?
I think I read it aloud, but she's still just had been holding it and will, hand it to you.
He would take out another scroll, sort of tucked into his belt, written on equally fine paper, this high quality paper, with a different seal on it, however. And he would kind of look at both of these scrolls for a moment, rolled up in his hands, and then he would tuck them back into his belt and give you a slight bow, Kume.
Any other conversation take place on this road to Taro? It's not a long journey. It's a hard one in the rain, but not too far into the southern Crane Lands.
You go.
Why were they disguised as Scorpion? It makes no sense.
We are scapegoats, always.
Sometimes deserved, I think.
I will be your villain, Hante.
No disrespect to Mitsukage here, but he has it right. If there was one clan that would do something like this, it would be the Scorpion.
Except it was not.
Unless we were meant to think it was not.
Best to not spend too much time trying to suss it out.
Who would want you dead? Who would want this message not to be received?
I have not led the most virtuous life. Plenty of people I've slighted in the past. No one with the power to do something like this, though. These letters, though,
you cannot conceive of the schemes of the Scorpion. They are manifold, contingency upon contingency. And an enemy that understands that is able easily to use our techniques against us.
If there was some plot of the Scorpion that enwrapped all of us, Mitsukage, you would be forthright with that information, yes?
I think like no one would notice, but Mitsukage will begin to like touch the tips of his fingers to his thumb as he like holds onto the reins of his horse. It's like a nervous thing that he does. Of course.
Good.
Duty is foremost of the virtues of Bushido to the Scorpion.
it was Scorpion who killed Doji Satsume, was it not?
Sometimes a rotten piece of fruit must be cut. Sometimes a sick animal must be culled from the herd.
Be careful with your words, Mitsukage-san. I would not so easily call Doji Satsume weak or rotten.
There would be an audible creak of shark leather armor from Garu.
I did not say that he was weak. What he was immaterial. There are things happening that we cannot begin to understand. There are schemes in place that are far beyond our understanding. We are pawns, all of us. It's good that we understand that.
Schemes or not, if they come for me again, I will bury them.
If the Scorpion came for you, you wouldn't even know.
I suppose we shall see in time.
Pawns we may be, but we are all Jade Magistrates now.
In the distance, you see some signs of life. Bustling carts, still too small to fully perceive the color and stock, but people moving up in through a hill pass, like a pass through mountains to Taro, your destination. And along the way, actually, a little bit further, you begin to see the river that Taro is named after. It's a small river, but it's notable for its raging rapids in certain areas and its absolute tranquility in others. As you're nearing the river, you see that a cart seems to be tipped over nearby, halfway on the road, halfway off, and there's one person piling stuff back into the cart, just stock and wares. And as you begin to pass, he sees you. Do you wear your Jade Gavels upon you? Would people just absolutely know that you're Jade Magistrates?
Not Mitsukage, he would hide it for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think Akume would have it open, but I also wonder, like, we're very obviously the distinct clans. How often would they be traveling together? How known is it that we are at least the three of us are Jade Magistrates? Kind of does reputation precede us?
That's a good point. I'm going to make a roll really quick. You hear him say, "Oh, samurai," and he nods his head in a bow, and the usual bow as you pass by him on the road. Taro lies ahead.
Before we move on, I would halt my horse clumsily. Like, it takes a few tries for me to actually remember what I'm even supposed to do to get the horse to stop. And I would look down at this guy and say, "Do you need help?"
Mitsukage rolls his eyes so hard he almost passes out.
Mitsukage, you might even remember another Jade Magistrate, Moto Chen, helping someone farm a field in the most disgraceful display that you could possibly imagine, and this begins to rival it.
He like thinks that this peasant should like put his forehead on the ground as we were right by, and this is like just insane.
Garu, you get out. You see surprise on his face, and he's speechless with gratitude. And with your strength and with his strength, you immediately right the cart. And afterwards, he kneels before you and bows his head. "Thank you. Taro is my only destination. I won't make it anywhere if I cannot sell these wares." And he kind of motions to the cart, and he piles a few more things in, mostly silks and spices. Very elegant stuff, actually.
From where are you carrying these goods?
The Northlands. He looks around at all of you. I'm not sure. You might keep writing. He says, "I was servant to Doji Satsume. Though I was never in his presence."
So you travel on behalf of the the former Emerald Champion?
On the contrary, my lord, I was set free upon his death.
Oh, of course. I'm sorry. You're destined for Taro. What can you tell me about that place?
He begins more casually looking at you, and he shrugs slightly, small smile on his face. "Well, nowadays there's no place within the Crane lands that is not mournful. But a large scorpion contingent has taken up in Taro in honor of the new Emerald Champion." Mitsukage, did you keep writing?
Oh yeah. He's not interested in whatever this peasant has to say. It's beneath him.
He looks to where Mitsukage was, the obvious scorpion, to compliment the new Emerald Champion, and he realizes he's departed, and a festival is taking place this day. Many traders have come from all over to make some coin, bet on some of the games. Why are you here? If I could ask, my lord.
I am Mantis. I go where my sails pull me. I would reach into my belt pouch and take out 2 koku, and I would hand them to him. "My thanks for your time," and hop back up on my horse.
He nods or bows deeply. Thank you so much. Bless the clan of the sea."
And I would kind of like smile a little bit, puff out my chest a bit, and then ride to catch up with the others. And when I do so, I would speak to them, specifically probably more to Akume and Hokkaido. He said, merchant, and he said that there's a festival in Taro honoring Bayushi Soju, the new Emerald Champion. Lots of scorpion, lots of people, lots of opportunities for us to get blades in the back.
Wonderful.
So we should watch ourselves.
Hi. Maybe not just ourselves. He kind of eyes the back of Mitsukage, riding up ahead.
Yeah, he like feels it, but is pretending that he doesn't, and so he's just like perfectly straight back, like writing like exactly what you think a samurai should look like.
I would lower my voice. Speak frankly with me. How well do you know him?
He can be counted on, I think. He has in the past, but he keeps things to himself. And that enough is cause for worry in my mind.
Who doesn't keep things to themselves, though?
The Phoenix keep the secrets of Shigenja magic, of many things, but the Scorpion keep different kinds of secrets, the kinds which overturn empires.
You slew an Oni together. So he seems like he has no sense of camaraderie with you, despite that.
I suspect we know him as well as one might ever know a Scorpion.
I've known a lot of Scorpions. He's a particularly potent example of the clan.
There's just like that twitch at the corner of Akume's mouth. If it was any other character, there would be a snort of laughter, but that's as much emotion as you're going to get out of her, and it says a lot.
Big Hokkaido probably simply nods in emphatic agreement.
He can be trusted to do his duty. However, a Scorpion's duty is to clan first.
That's why I ask, in the time that you've known him, in the battles that you've seen, has he ever tripped, fallen, stumbled, missed?
Never.
He was an astute warrior. I will give him that much.
There was a moment, however, when we faced the Oni. It is a dishonor to speak of it. He fled. He returned, but all the same.
That monster was not of this world. You should understand, Garu. His dishonor at running from battle is excusable.
The Unicorn are famed for their feigned retreats. Falling back is noise failure. I understand. The reason why I asked, though, is when we were chasing down that assassin, he tripped at a very inopportune time. Now, I'm not saying that he didn't actually trip, but he doesn't seem like a guy who trips.
I refuse to judge a man based on things I have not seen.
I respect that, and you don't know me from anyone else, but I needed to ask.
Your suspicions are understandable and noted. However, circumstance is not evidence.
Akume, your mind is on those tea leaves and that empty cup as you look up ahead at Mitsukage. And Mitsukage, all around you, begin falling to their knees, putting their heads in a low, deep bow, saying the words, "Long live Bayushi Shoju, the Emerald Champion, the Emerald Champion, the Emerald Champion." Especially to you do they bow, Mitsukage. To all the samurai that pass, they honor you. And slowly but surely, the scattered masses of carts and merchants and people in the fray going to and fro begins to turn into a frolicking mess of humans in the road, parting as you on your horses move through the crowd. Some do not notice you for taking importance. They're pawning off of wares. They're wrestling matches over coin or over pride. But those that do notice you usually stop what they're doing, turn red in the face, and bow to you deeply as you pass. You hear phrases upon mournful faces spoken, such as, "I know this is a festival to honor Bayushi Shoju and to honor Doji Satsume, but I can't quite shake this sadness from my heart." You'll hear another person say, "They say the emperor himself would be here if it would not be such a dishonor to show his face, but he has fallen too ill to even consider it. Thankfully, the Emerald Champion, Bayushi Shoju, has sent his regiments, his people here to fully honor Doji Satsume in his death." You hear many, many different varieties of the story of how Doji Satsume died. The road opens up and you see it from atop this hill. This village of Taro has become a city of tents. Reds and blues and greens, banners of the lion, of the crane, of the unicorn, of all the clans fly, cheering over archery matches, screaming as someone claims to have been pickpocketed, and they search the culprit and find out, it's not the case. Ancient old grudges are hard to break. Someone drunkenly stumbles into a tent, shatters one of its bamboo poles, and the whole thing comes collapsing down on top of a bunch of very fragile teacups, as the owner of the stall does everything they can to keep anything from breaking, but to no avail. There are people everywhere, in the rain, in the mud. It might as well be a beautiful sunny day. What do you do in Taro?
Mitsukage will ride to a point where he thinks is least convenient for people to go around him, and then will stop his horse there. So at an intersection or something, somewhere where he can show off that he is a scorpion samurai. So he'll find somewhere where 2 or 3 roads meet, and he'll just stop his horse there and sit back in the saddle perfectly straight backed, and just begin looking around him at the people, and try and get an impression of what is happening here, and see the myriad sort of interactions that happen in a place like this. But he'll he hates it. He's so uncomfortable. But he knows that this is what a samurai does. He knows rationally that's what they do. He hates it. He wants to be alone, somewhere quiet, But nonetheless, he like forces himself to like stop here for a second and like have people look to him and bow to him and things like that, because it's important to maintain that sort of appearance.
As vast of an honor you are shown by the surrounding people who are passing by you and around you, you are shown an equally wider berth as people stay a little further away from you, as opposed to keeping their distance from the distance kept from anyone else near them. You smell pungent perfumes and incenses. You smell the rain just drowning all of these dense smells, both disgusting and floral, into the mud beneath you. And lastly, you smell something just quite wonderful. The smell of cooked meat. A cart of turtle shells and stewed turtles approaches and bows deeply to you, Mitsukage, and says, a Jade Magistrate. And he eyes you. Seemingly this person is in the know somewhat.
A Jade Magistrate, Lord.
Of course, my lord. Forgive me.
Yes? What is it?
Well, he looks to his cart of turtle and says, I would offer you some of my wares for free, but it is not enough to gain your forgiveness for my dishonoring you here and now. He reaches low in the cart and says, but this is my finest. And he pulls out something on a long, slender bamboo skewer. It's just crucified on here is a dead, cooked frog. And he hands it over to you, Soshi Mitsukage, and says, for my lord.
He like looks and like looks around and looks down and inclines his head. This is the best that you have. I will take it.
It is the best there is. And he bows his head and says, long live Bayushi Shoju.
Long live he. And he'll take the stick and then like pop it into a saddlebag and ride.
Cool. And the cart disappears into the sea of other carts. Hokkaidan, what do? You kind of find yourself in the midst of a lot of different games and competitions. And honestly, much like Mitsukage, people look to you with honor and pride and bow to you whenever you pass. You are a samurai indeed. I can't remember, do you wear your badge of the Jade Magistracy, the Jade Gavel, outwardly?
I think that Hokkaidan probably would. It's a kind of rank almost, and the lion being very militant, I think display of rank would be something that would be very commonplace and expected. So he is wearing it with pride.
Someone near a wrestling, what's the sport called? A sumai mat, like a sumai circle, shouts, ha! A lion here in the Cranelands? How did you get here without falling off your horse? This drunken person. And go ahead.
As he's riding past this person, he removes his foot from the stirrup and gives him a stern kick with his heel right in the forehead.
Oh, he falls backward into the mud, and everyone around him begins laughing, a roarous laughter. And another person near the ring says, that's no mere lion, that's a Jade Magistrate, and points to the insignia that you're talking about. And everyone kind of falls quiet. Ooh, this is a very high office you hold.
You should know your place, drunkard. I think I found it for you. On your back and in the mud. Stay put and sober up. He turns his horse away and heels it forward.
This man does as you ask. He remains until you are perhaps nearly out of view, so to get back up. And even then, maybe he'll wait a little bit longer. But the other person who is in the ring kind of follows you and says, "My lord, I know it is beneath you, but it would be an honor if you would participate in the competition. We have only yet one unbeaten champion."
Who is this champion? What is this sport? Wrestling?
Yes, my lord. The champion's name is Shiba.
So be it. Very well. He'll dismount off of his horse and lead it back to this arena to figure out exactly what's going on.
As you get back, you see the drunkard kind of getting up, and right when he sees you, he drops back into the mud on his back, as if he hasn't left, maybe even gets himself a little extra dirty, and sits up, and he bows deeply to you as you pass him again. You get to the ring and are introduced by this ringleader, perhaps. He says, "We have a Jade Magistrate here to challenge Shiba Toya." And everyone kind of roars with a mighty excitement. And do you know much about this sport? Do you want to make a roll for that, or tell me how much you know about Judai?
I think this is something that the crab would probably do a lot of. And it's kind of it's one of those things that was part of Hokkaiden's like rehabilitation training, but with his bad back, it's never been something that he's been great at. So it certainly isn't something that he has spent a lot of time learning.
One thing you do know, though, however, despite your lack of immediate proficiency in this sport, is that you are using your opponent's physical prowess against them. The sport is leverage more than its power. And you also know that you must strip down to just your undergarments for a fair fight. As you do so, what scars do you have? What markings do you have on your body? What does it look like as you remove this armor?
So Hokkaiden had his back broken by a Tetsuo. So I think there's probably a curvature to his spine now. And that's kind of what causes a lot of the back pain and stuff that he deals with. So I think there's probably small pucker marks from the studs on the Tetsubo itself, kind of like this stripe of pock marks across his lower back. But the curvature of his spine, I think, is probably the most noticeable. And I'm sure he has a multitude of other scars on top of that, but I think that's probably what would stand out.
The cheers become hushed whispers yet again. Some eyes fall on you, but more than not, people are courteous enough to show you respect enough to not stare at your injuries. There are you hear some animals flocking nearby. You have some birds fly off, and a cat has seemingly chased them off and is meowing at the ring. Doesn't seem to belong to anybody. It's hairless and rather annoying. But you enter into the ring. Oh, hold on one second.
So yeah, he strips down to his undergarments, kind of eyeing where he lays the his daisho and his crab clan armor off to the side, as well as his jade gavel. Knowing that this town is rife with scorpion, he definitely takes a strong visual account of what he's laying down and where.
Ooh, very smart. And thank you very much, Jeremy, for describing that. Your opponent steps before you, Shibatoya, tall and broad-shouldered. Probably more fit for a sword fighter than a martial artist such as this. And maybe you can use that to your advantage. You both set up, interlocking in the center of the ring. First to be shoved outside of it or pinned inside of it completely is the loser. Silence falls. And you begin. Roll martial arts melee.
Okay.
Yeah.
Martial arts.
Barker, can I place a bet while this is happening?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead and describe to me the person you're approaching and describe to me what the bet is.
She's a woman walking around with a, she has like basically like a portable desk hanging off of her shoulders. And on the desk is a ledger where she keeps track of all the bets that have been placed. And I walk up to her and I put 3 koku on Hokkaido winning in the first round.
She nods shallowly, not overtly respectful. All are equal when it comes to koku and rice and the gambling of that which gains and loses both. The fight begins. What did you get?
3 successes. One of the die exploded. So I got 3 successes, an Opera Vanity, and a Strife.
Here's what you see, Garu. You see Shibatoya move in so quickly that he has left open some sort of tremendous weakness that allows Hokkaido to just put him out near instantly. Hokkaido, what does that look like?
So this guy's built like a sword fighter?
Yeah, tall, lean. Honestly, it could be, you recognize the Shiba name is actually that of the Phoenix. But you kind of see that he might be a better sword fighter than the cat's leaving. Yes, correct.
So this man charges at him, realizing that Hokkaido is shorter than him. He actually kneels down in the sand of this fighting pit and hits this guy right about where his belt is, using the mass of his upper body from being toned from learning how to fight with a sword, and his height to throw his center of gravity upwards. And he hits him low and brings him up high and literally just flips him over his top, and he lands halfway out of the ring.
A roarous applause, cheers as Shibatoya lands outside of the ring. His face is in shock and his back is in agony. It cramps up in the lower side. He's bending it, grasping at it, and after a while, he does his best. There's a presence, correct? That's a right thing. Give me a presence check.
And I don't know if that's a.
What am I thinking?
There is another one, another skill. Performance.
Performance or command?
Command is what I meant. Sorry, not
okay. Perfect. I do have a rank in that.
Okay. I'm doing some kind of like crowd, like, turning to the crowd kind of thing is what you're looking for?
More like I want to see what this guy's reaction is to losing so handily after becoming basically the daily champion, but
Okay.
losing so handily to you, a samurai and a Jade Magistrate.
So I had used Earth Stance to kind of stand my ground and use his momentum against him. Would you want me to use Earth Stance for this role as well?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually.
Okay, perfect. All right. Okay, so that's 2 successes and an opera vanity.
His back pain is on full display, but still he's able to spin around onto his knees. He puts his head to the floor and bows deeply to you. Garu, you have some koku placed into your hand.
Which is good because I had only 2 koku left after tipping that merchant and then making that bet. So, but I'm used to dwindling my resources down to nothing. So as I collect my koku, I slip them into my belt.
Perfect. And you do collect 2 more because it was such a quick off the cuff match. It was just kind of basic 50-50 odds. If it had been planned prior, I'm sure many people would have bet for Hokkaidan. Hokkaidan, you, in all of your underwear glory, your muscular glory, move back to your items, and there you see Garu standing among them.
That was fantastic. Remind me to never wrestle you. That was incredible.
It's not something I do very often. He slowly starts to get dressed, almost embarrassed by this, the fact that somebody from the Jade Magistrates actually witnessed this.
You took to it really naturally. I think if this Jade Magistrate thing doesn't work out, you have a real future in the fighting ring.
He kind of looks at Garu for a second, confused, and then it dawns on him that he wasn't being sincere, and he just kind of perhaps. He kind of starts shaking his head and just getting dressed.
Oh, and I would hand you 2 koku. I made that betting on you to win.
Maybe an opportunity after all, then. And he kind of pockets the coin.
Akume, you're walking through people and maybe market stalls. What are you doing in Taro?
Akume is trying to discern what is here. What purpose is here? Why were they sent here? Why is Garu here? She's walking around. She's trying to keep that part of herself open. That she has void sense, sixth sense, and she's trying to determine is there some threat here? Doji Satsume knew what they had faced. He knew of the Oni. Was there something else that he wanted them to do? It just seems so mundane. Who is this Mantis? Why is he a Jade Magistrate? Why are they here? And so I don't know if I can do...
I think a sentiment check, maybe. Yeah, sentiment or government.
Yeah, cool. I don't have either of those.
Listen, that's what I do here is I just pick the skills we never use and just let's exploit them.
Yeah, that sounds fun. I actually never did for this.
We're going to be rolling some courtesy here today, guys.
Yeah, that's like the theme. What?
Mm-hmm.
1 opportunity, no successes.
Say that again. You cut out for me.
Right. 1 opportunity, no successes.
Okay. You can't quite deduce yourself what the purpose of escorting Garu to this location is. You are perhaps even confused by the message that turns him into a Jade Magistrate, and the lateness of the message. Why didn't the first message say, and also make him a Jade Magistrate while you escort him? It was peculiar to receive these two messages, especially the second one, which is being intercepted by these assassins. But you remember vaguely with that opportunity that Garu was holding a second scroll that he was comparing it to, comparing the one you handed him to, and that maybe the answer might lie in Garu instead. And as you ponder that, you see Isawa Aki. I don't know how you know Isawa Aki, but you have had maybe a competitive relationship with this person, whether you're friends or rivals. What sort of memory comes to mind once you see this floral, almost crown-wearing, long dark hair draping down her back, red makeup over her eyes, dressed for a festival as she is, well, we'll let you decide what that story is. Who is she?
Isawa Aki is one of the many extended family. Cousins would be the mundane term for Akume. But Aki has always been flashy. She talks too much. She wishes to be seen and to be heard when she ought to be silent. Unfortunately, she does have much support among the Asawa clan and among the Phoenix clan. But she and Akume have never seen eye to eye.
Well, you are both seeing each other in the eyes now as she, with a wisp of her kind of silken clothing, lights off this spectacular display of fire and embers, of blue and green and reds, pop, 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 pop in the sky, and cheers abound around her as she pulls off this trick from up her sleeve. She looks to you, though, and walks immediately toward you. How does she greet you, and how do you greet her?
Akume would, at this point, letting her pride perhaps get the better of her, simply pull aside I think it's probably the sash where the jade gavel hangs, so that it is visible. And she would offer a small bow of respect to Aki, as one might to someone who is beneath them.
You see, as she approaches you and sees the gavel there, she attempts to keep her composure. With all her flash and flamboyance, she's a very good actor, but you see fire in her eyes for a moment. And this flash of rage immediately subsides, and she says, Akume, as she bows just the smallest amount more deeply than you did. Good tidings. How are you, Kin?
Aki, I see you are the same as ever. I am well.
She motions towards her display. Yes, I am always here to provide happiness and joy for the people around me.
Certainly, the Shugenja arts are meant for cheap tricks, of course.
She can't conceal her rage on her face now. Perhaps a game between you and me, Akume, for old time's sake. I would love to see a Jade Magistrate face me. It would be an honor to lose to such a prestigious, there's venom on that word, member of society.
I'm certain it would honor you. However, it might be beneath my station. I cannot spare the time.
I see. She seems maybe a little relieved, though she hides it somewhat well. Well then, Akume, I suppose I will have to best these peasants at archery and heraldry and, whatever, cooking, perhaps history, you know, all these things that I'm good at and more.
Certainly, Aki. I relish the chance to hear how your challenges have turned out for you.
She bows, but she looks you in the eyes the whole time and turns and goes back to her business. Just then, you hear the trotting of horses through the mud. It seems as if a few of the unicorn are here, broad-helmeted, purple-armored, and very un-samurai-esque in their demeanor and ways. They ride past you, but bowing as they do so. Mitsukage, you see these people too, riding past. Though you don't seem to recognize any of them. Maybe for a moment you thought or had some hope that your old unicorn companion Chen would show up in Taro, but not today, so it would seem. What do you say, Mitsukage, or do in this moment as you follow with your eyes these unicorn horse lords galloping up to in the distance where Garu and Hokkaido are?
He has like a surprising amount of respect for the unicorn. They have like a different way of understanding Bushido, and he can like appreciate that because he does too. And there is something about like their horsemanship that is a application of skill that he like really can appreciate. Something that he cannot do, and he appreciates skill more than he appreciates status. Although he pretends that status is much more important to him. I don't think he says anything. I think he like watches them go by and like admires the look of them and the skill of their horse riding. He might like look at some of the peasants to like gauge their reaction to how they think about these samurai going by. But I think he's mostly quiet.
Similarly to your experience as you're entering Taro, you see many peasants bow deeply to these samurai of the unicorn that ride by. Subbon no Garu, Hokkaido. These three horse lords approach at a gallop, and immediately the one in the front says, "When I heard there was a Jade Magistrate in Taro, I didn't believe them." Tell me, is there more than one?
Who wishes to know?
He takes off his helmet in a gesture of goodwill, and he steps off of his horse and says, "My name is Kayu of the Moto family." And he reveals a long bearded chin, graying at the corners. His hair is tied back in a top knot, but still the gray streaks in his hair show signs of age. And on the edges of his eyes, crow's feet have begun to form. The other two look young and strapping. He nods, bows to you. He says, I meant no disrespect, of course.
Hokkaido bows, as would be appropriate for someone of his station. And he says, I knew one of your people, Moto Chen.
Oh, Shen is my nephew.
I can
Yes,
see the resemblance.
I'm sure, right? He sarcastically says, and he says, I heard that he was one of you now, and he bows as a sign of respect as he says, one of you, Jade Magistrates. He says, I don't know what you did to him, but he seems to have backed off the sake a bit. I tell you, he's happy, but I'm somewhat disappointed.
Well, we were put through much together. It's good to know that he is recovered.
He stands up a little straighter. Maybe a show of concern on his eyes. He nods and then looks to your companion. You don't see many mantis here. My name is Moto Ryu. He bows. And you are?
Garu, this entire time, after this guy has introduced himself, has just been standing there kind of eyes wide looking at him. And as he gets addressed, he shakes his head. Subbon no Garu, you said your name was Caillou?
He nods more deeply. A small smirk maybe crosses the side of his mouth.
I think I'm supposed to meet you here.
He, as you begin to pull the scroll maybe out of a pouch, he puts his hand out, shakes his head. Perhaps under better shelter. And he looks up, and you might look up, and you'll see every once in a while there's some scorpion masked faces that he seems to be dodging.
Right.
Even the scorpion are honorable, but honor means different things to different clans. You understand.
I do.
Ume, didn't you say there was a Teahouse near that was worth checking out?
Were you asking Akume? I didn't hear you.
Yes.
Yeah, I think Akume, having seen these horse riders speaking to Hokkaido and Garu, would have glided over, just back straight as a pole after her interaction with Aki. Yes. I believe it to be this way, Hokkaido.
He kind of raises an eyebrow and looks at the other two kind of with a knowing look.
Should we find Mitsukagi?
He will find us.
I heard there was a fourth.
Yes.
Scorpion friend.
A scorpion. A Jade Magistrate as well.
He nods. Yes. Of course. Yes. Let us go. He looks to you, Akume. Ah. The Phoenix Shugenja. He bows deeply. Yours is a craft and art yet unmastered, I fear, by my brethren in the Unicorn Lands. We are a more hardened folk for things such as magic. He kind of smirks at the word.
Indeed, the Shugenja arts are most particular and difficult to master. However, my acquaintance with Moto-chan has assured me that the Unicorn clan has many gifts.
A broad smile crosses his face and the two other unicorns on their horses, and he nods. Well, show us the way then. Your preferred tea house. And he hops back on his horse.
Yeah, I think Inakume is walking about in her attempts to discern why they were here. She would have also been making note of the different tea houses, which ones seemed frequented by scorpions, which ones seemed quieter, and would pick a quiet, out-of-the-way one that seemed to be occupied by locals.
Yeah, you actually kind of discover in looking for the tea house, you discover Taro, not Taro as you've met it, this massive festival of tents and people, but the actual village, which seems pretty docile in comparison. It's flanking both sides of the same river, and a long, slender bridge crosses that river, the Taro River. And you see, I mean, you'll hear animals baying, and you'll see some, people working in the fields for their own, servants working in the fields. You'll see very few people in town because most are out in the festivities, but very clearly this place has been marked off as a place that should be kept peaceful. And you do find a tea house. What's the name of the person who runs it?
Oh my god, I'm terrible at names.
I was actually going to say, I asked that and I was like, oh man, this isn't a game of D&D. So
terrible names, don't ask me.
the Goba is the name of the person that runs this tea house. Tell me what they look like. Who is Goba?
First, tell me if Goba is a male or female name.
I'll leave it to you. It's it's kind of a name of a god, so you choose.
Oh, okay. Goba is a short, round man, reminiscent of Uncle Iroh in many ways. A deep love of tea and a jovial personality.
Oh, welcome! Oh, Jade Magistrates here in Taro. He bows very, very deeply. Please come in, please. Oh, and he shouts some words over to some servants over in the corner, and they start boiling tea, and he begins setting place up for you. I was afraid I would get no guests today, and here I have 3 of the best. Oh, and then he sees the unicorn coming through the back. 6! Moto Ryu! It's been a long time. They embrace each other. Clearly friends. You said you would never come back to Taro. Oh, what devilry brings you here? And you're all set being people drinking tea in a tea house.
Garu is somewhat quiet throughout this entire process, and as he takes his seat crouching at this table, kneeling upon this soft pillow, he would take out the 2 scrolls that he's carrying, one a letter from Caillou, the other a letter from Doji Satsume, and he would place them both in front of him on the table, also setting the wakizashi with the crane colors and the crane mon upon it on the table in front of him, and then he would sort of sit and wait, his eye constantly drawn to Caillou.
So Akume, as they were entering this tea house, she kept her eyes open for Mitsukage. And not seeing him appear from shadow as he is wont to do, she would take one of the several ribbons from her hair and simply tie it, if there's a small gate or perhaps outside the doorpost, to one of the posts, the little pergola that covers the entryway, knowing that Mitsukage will find them easily with such a mark.
Okay, good call. Does anyone react other than in any way in particular? If go ahead, Hokkaido.
I'm just going to say, I think Hokkaido is not paying that close of an attention, and he's slipping off his road worn shoes as they enter this tea house, and making sure that he's at least somewhat clean and presentable, even though they've been on the road. And then he crosses to sit at this table, very eager to get food in his stomach.
Your stomach growls audibly, and Goba needs just to snap his fingers, and food is brought. Rice, bowls of rice, sauces, small bits of meat, and yet Garu's gaze still pierces Motokayu. Motokayu looks on the table, the crane wakizashi. Yeah. He says to you, Garu, where did you get that?
I've always had it. Gift from my mother. Only thing I have from them, the crane.
He nods and says, I was there when she had it made. And that's where we're going to take maybe a 15-minute break. 10 minute. I said 15. I meant 5 or 10. I just accidentally added 5 and 10 together.
Let's round out. Take a half-hour break.
We're gonna take a 510-minute break, guys. So, no, yeah, we're gonna take about 5 to 10 minutes, and we'll find out, Motokayu, where he recognizes that Crane Wakizashi from when we get back.
Sounds good. We're back.
Hey guys.
Hey,
What's up?
you came back up. I just shoved 4 pretzels in my mouth.
And now they're still in your throat. So one thing that I am trying to do more, and well, that I haven't done in this session, that I keep forgetting to do, that I want to do more, is to hand out more strife. Like, just hand it out. It's such a good mechanic for, like, you see someone, like, for an example, if I could go back when Akume met Aki, gain a strife for some reason, you know.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't do that enough either, and I I sort of realized that was something you could do. And then during the 3rd session, when you guys had the like Oni visions, I gave you guys strife on each of those.
Yep.
It's like a cool option to have.
Yep.
It's like, hey, take a strife.
Hey, take a strife. Hey, strife.
Yeah, that way it kind of ensures that there's a few more like unmasking scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is really fun.
Yep.
There's like a fate style way where a player can choose to like be affected by one of their, what are they called? Adversities? Is that what they're called?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
You like choose to be adversities and anxieties. You can choose to be affected by one of those and take 3 strife to gain a void point.
Ooh.
I don't know. There's like a lot in this game that I never do.
Yeah, it's got a lot of moving parts to it. Unless it's something that you're familiar with, it's hard to kind of keep tabs on all of it. For me, at least, it is.
I find myself yeah, exactly. I find myself really wanting to recommend it to people and simultaneously telling them, like, don't worry about the learning curve, not because it's easy, but because it's worth it. And I feel like I'm only now, as I'm running this game, growing more in tune with the rules, though there are still some things that I'm like, what? Okay, what? But I feel like by the time I'm finished, I'm going to get it. And it's going to be like, man, if only I could go back and do more of those intrigue things, or maybe a duel. And maybe you'll get one of those.
When you run more games down the road.
No, but dude, can we talk about Vampire the Masquerade V5 5th edition now? There's too many games out. Can we talk about Shadows over Driftapple? Can we talk about A Dead Man's Guide to Dragon Grint? There's just it's industry saturation, bro.
Truth.
There's a lot of stuff to be excited about.
I hate it. I was just sitting here during the break looking up at my shelf. I have like 5 Star Wars games on my shelf, and I'm like, I want to run a Star Wars game.
Yep. Oh man. You know what?
Versions of West End, Saga Edition, Edge of the Empire. I'm just like, I would love to run a campaign of any of those.
I think I like the idea of running a 2.5-hour one-shots for 2 players. Like an Obi-Wan Anakin style Star Wars game, or like you're both rogues D&D game. You know what I mean?
It'd be cool. I want to run, or rather, I want to play in a game run by you. Here, Barker, interest post for you to run me something.
Okay.
Because there's Y-Wings can have 2 pilots. I want to play a game where it's two players and we're both in a Y-Wing. One person's the pilot, one person's the tail gunner. And we have to like go on a mission or something. I don't know.
Dude, that sounds amazing. We're going to hack. We're just going to start up a live stream of us playing a modded version of Rogue Squadron on the Nintendo 64.
Yeah, I'm gonna boot up Rogue. I'm gonna boot up X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. Let's do this shit.
Oh, that actually sounds really cool. That was one thing I wanted to do for a while, was run a Rogue Squadron game. I still do.
I remember that.
Running a Rogue Squadron game where there's like everyone has a hot rod like starfighter that they fly, and
yeah, I love the idea that you have like one player has a Y-Wing and there's like a X-Wing and an A-Wing, and they're all like totally customized with like what are they called? I can't remember, but the customization points that you can do. It'd be so fun.
What kind of stopped me from doing that initially was the starfighter combat rules in Edge of the Empire seemed very not great for it, but I didn't know them that well, and now there's Age of Rebellion, which dives more deeply into them, I think, and so I'm going to give it a shot here instead of running it in Fate or something. You guys want to keep going?
Let's do it.
Okay. We're going to start with Soshi Mitsukage. What are you doing? Where's your head at? What's happening?
He's been riding around and he finds like a quiet corner of this town and like dismounts and ties his horse somewhere and like walks in this alleyway, and there are like several shops here, and there's like a really strong stench of like tannin and of leather and like of butchers and all the like sort of like low crafts. And he knows what he's looking for because he's been to these shops many times, and he like eventually finds one that has like a bunch of herbs drying outside and like walks in. And we'll find this man or woman, someone ancient and like wizened with like white hair, like milky eyes, and he'll like make his way over to the counter and like knock so that they know that he's there. And he will say, "There's a particular kind of milk that I'm after."
You say that to the door or after this guy opens it?
After he opens it.
Yep, he opens. He eyes you curiously. Do come in.
He'll do so and like walk in and like look at the various like jars filled with weird things, like pickled lizards and things like that. And he'll kind of make his way to the counter and put like both his hands on it quite seriously and like stand straight. A certain kind of milk that only the moon has seen.
You see him getting recognition on his face, but there are no bows from this man. There's no courtesy to the scorpion or the samurai. There's no long live Bayushi Shoju. He looks behind you at the doorway, sees where you have closed it. There's a child playing in the back room. He moves over and slides a thin veil across that doorway leading to that direction. And he actually reaches into his pocket for a very, very small vial of something. What color is it?
It's purple. It's this like really intense lilac purple.
He sets it on the counter and he says, "I have never needed to have a price for this."
That is because no one has ever bought it from you, nor have I. And he'll like put like a pretty significant amount of money onto the counter.
Of course, we are closed today for the festivities.
No one has been here, and nothing has been sold.
Not today, of course. Might I recommend you go through the back?
I will. And he'll like leave more money than he needs to, but like a pretty significant amount, so this guy understands that like no one has been here.
By the look on his face, staring at the coin, you determine that this might be as much as this person would make in half of a year or a full year. And so they show you out the back door into the raining alley, though it's more sprinkling now.
Mitsukage will like walk past the playing child. I think like the kid looks up and he looks down and just give like a wink. This like uncharacteristic, sort of like friendly, jovial like wink from Mitsukage. And he'll do this thumb trick, you know, it's like where the thumb is like not connected to the finger. And the kid will just be like, "What?" And then he'll like wink again and he'll make his way outside.
He's wide-eyed and wide-jawed. Broad smile crosses that child's face. He'll never forget you.
Yeah, he'll took the vial. He'll like take out a small pouch and put it inside the pouch. He'll close the pouch. He will take that pouch and place it inside an inside pocket, like a secret inside pocket, so that there's no amount of searching unless you know where it is that it could be found. This is everything Mitsukagi owns. Every piece of clothing has secret pockets and hidden compartments and things like that. And once that's done, he'll make his way back and start to look for the others.
It doesn't take too long, actually, because of Akume's marking of Goba's Teahouse for you to find the location. But before you arrive, Motokayu looks to Subbon no Garu and says, "Yes, I knew your mother well. And your father." And he looks around warily at your companions.
I think the look of surprise is clearly evident on Hokkaiden's face as he stares back and forth at the crane katana and then up at Garu, having not fully even heard the rest of the conversation after Garu mentioned that his mother was Crane.
They don't know. I haven't told them because it doesn't make sense, because it's something I wanted to know my whole life, and now that I know, I just wish that I could go back to the way things were before. I look to Akume and Hokkaiden. You have shown me nothing but kindness, and you've made it clear that secrets should not be kept between us. Caillou wrote me this letter, and I would slide the first letter forward. I don't know Caillou. I don't know that he knew my mother. I don't know that he has any sort of authority to tell me the things he did, but I also have no reason to doubt him. I am Crane. I've always known this. We've made no secrets about it among the Mantis. The Mantis is a clan of wayward souls, people without homes, people without families. I was born out of wedlock, a bastard, and so my mother fled the Crane, and we found a home in the Mantis. The name she wanted to give me, she couldn't, because, well, now I know why. I took the name of the man who hid us aboard his ship. His name was Garu. I looked at Caillou.
Yeah, I think there's probably like a pregnant pause at the table where Hokkaiden eventually says, "What name would you have taken?"
I unroll the scroll, the one from Caillou, and lay it out on the table. She wanted to call me Satsu, after my dad.
Caillou speaks up. Just a few days ago, the Kujira, the ship that I asked you to anchor deep in the ocean, was destroyed by assassins. All of those aboard it gave their lives to protect your identity. He says you want to go back to the way things were. You want to go back to a normal life. He reaches into his boot and he pulls out a large rolled stack of papers, like multiple papers, and it's all tied with a thread, and he hands it to you. He places it on the table and he says, "There's your chance. Those are all the documents you need to own a plot of land and farming servants in the land of the Badger. You can go there forever. Live out your life. Live honorably and secretly, so that none will destroy you." He chokes on that last word.
And if I don't, what's the alternative?
They won't stop coming.
Why? Why do they want me dead? I'm a bastard. I'm a mantis. I am a pirate, a smuggler. Why do they even care that I'm his illegitimate son? I have no claim to any of his titles or riches.
Because you are the sapling of the crane, and empires change with the tides, as does their rules. It's the only way to make sure. You could... He says, if you were a Jade Magistrate, maybe, but there's no way you would be granted that honor now. Your father is dead.
Hang on. No. The second letter makes a lot more sense now. The Emperor's protection. That's what Satsume said. I unroll the scroll. He made me a Jade Magistrate. It makes sense now. I'm not qualified.
Face pales. He made you a Jade Magistrate? When? Show me.
Here. Akume broke the seal herself. It was official.
How was I not informed about this?
I don't think he had much time, but clearly he knew something was coming.
Perhaps the less people who know about it, the better.
That too.
Mitsukage, you find Goba's Teahouse. The rain is now falling in fat drops.
Yeah, he'll like pause before he goes in. He walks quickly always, and so when he arrives somewhere, he's always a little bit out of breath. And so he'll like stop under the shelter, maybe an awning or something, and like take a few breaths in through his nose, and like center himself before he enters. He does this basically every time he goes anywhere, so that he is prepared and in the moment for whatever he's going to encounter. And so when he's done that, he'll like walk inside, but he won't like make a big entrance. He'll like open the door quietly and try and slip in and see what's going on before he engages.
Go ahead and give me a skullduggery check, actually. And if anyone else... I always forget, there's no contested checks, right? Everything's a target number?
No, you can do contested. It's just against successes versus successes.
Gotcha. Okay, so...
I'm so good at skullduggery, so I mean, good luck.
Garu, you can roll skullduggery as well.
Ooh, nice.
7.
7 successes?
Yeah, I got 3 explosions. Yeah.
Great. Let me just see how many I get here.
He's been the person delivering us tea the whole time.
Like
Okay.
literally the thing that Mitsukage is exceptional at.
He's like, he takes off his mustache. Gene Parmesan. So I just got 3, 2 of which are exploding successes. So I'm rolling again. That's 1 strife. Check of that. So 3, 4, another strife, 2 strife, 5. 5 total with 2 strife, so I don't beat it.
You finish the conversation, perhaps including a bit about you running away for your life, and look up to see Mitsukage, the Scorpion Jade Magistrate, in the doorway. Perhaps you were speaking for a little too long.
I would say Mitsukage's here. Mitsukage's here.
Mitsukage doesn't know how to interact with that. He doesn't know what to do with that. He looks down at the group and will just incline his head in the correct amount, the perfect amount of angle that is appropriate to incline your head, and then will pour himself into a seat and sit in that sort of samurai way, which is shoulders perfectly square and hands on your hips in that sort of really formal way. We have guests.
Haydn reaches across the table and pours Mitsukage a cup of tea.
Yeah, he'll take it and drink it in that sort of comical samurai way where your elbow is perfectly straight. But you'll notice, and you'll always notice it about Mitsukage, he never drinks something without first smelling it. So he'll take time to do that.
There would be a few moments of sort of awkward silence as Mitsukage sort of gets himself seated, and then Garu would say, I was just telling Akume and Hokaiden that there should be no secrets between us, being Jade Magistrates, being companions.
Indeed, and about your heritage too, I believe.
Yes. I am the bastard son of Doji Satsume. A fact that I was myself unaware of until recently, after his death.
That puts a notable target upon your head.
It does, which is
Therefore,
why
hindering all of us directly.
Yes, but
endangering our mission in every facet of it.
Have you considered, Mitsukage, that our mission might be to protect him?
Why would that be our mission? Satsume is no longer the Emerald Champion. He is dead.
And yet Doji Satsume gave us instructions to escort him here.
And you've done
are scorpions incapable of reading intent and only follow orders?
Intent is unclear from a letter. Intent is unclear even in person. We must be direct and clear at all times. If you tell me to go and kill a man, as we have all been told to do before, then I will do so in whatever way seems best to me. If you want that to be quiet, if you want that to be loud, these things are about intent.
Perhaps we should wait to see what our charge is. And if it is to protect him, then I cannot think of anything more direct.
Moto Kayu, basically glaring at Mitsukage, seizes it and lets out a laugh. The honor of the Emerald Champion is always clear. And then he looks to Garu and says, as I understand it, and he looks to you, Garu, holds out his hand and says, Doji Satsume here is
Don't
now a
call
Jade
me
Mag.
That's not my name.
He flushes. Of course. Subbon Garu is, he says, bowing his head, a Jade Magistrate now. He is one of you. He is one of the Emerald Champions chosen, and therefore he is one of the Emperors chosen.
Your name is not a choice that you make. Doji. It's not a choice.
Were you eavesdropping long enough, Mitsukage, to hear that his mother did not give him that name?
Does it matter? He has claim. He is descended from that line.
Names do matter, she
Not
says
if-
with a little more force.
If I am orchestrating and ensuring that Doji Satsume is no longer the Emerald Champion and that his family cannot make claim, I will ensure that anyone who has even a tenuous connection to him, and he realizes he's talking too much and he's like giving away too much, and he like pauses and takes a sip of tea. I'd be careful.
I believe, Mitsukage, that you would fault anyone for changing a name.
He's like not expecting that, and he knows that Hokkaido doesn't know, but there's something about him that like the sincerity of it that like makes Mitsukage like do a double take, and his hand shakes noticeably as he like brings the teacup to his lips and like takes a sip, and he like places it down with like too loud of a. No, I suppose not.
Mitsukage is speaking directly, if a bit harshly, which honestly I appreciate at this juncture, because he's right. My presence here endangers everyone. But my father saw fit to grant me some measure of protection because he knew what was coming. He knew that the scorpion would be taking his life. I'm not here to pass judgment on men I don't know for killing a father I never met. But I don't intend on running, because that's not a life I want. And I would pass the papers back to Caillou, though I appreciate the offer. Like it or not, I'm a Jade Magistrate, and my father made me such, possibly as his last command as Emerald Champion. And the Emerald Champion that I serve now is the man who killed him. So I think out of the four of us, I have the most to lose and the most to gain here. So I'm not running.
Caillou nods his head, takes the papers, places them in his boot, and bows his head, and he says, "Of course, I will yield to the instruction of a Jade Magistrate." As he eyes Mitsukage, and then your companions, he stands, and so too do the other unicorn members, and he says, "Thank you for meeting me here. I know that the journey was difficult, but I will take my leave."
I would stand and bow to Motokayo. Thank you. Sincerely.
In that moment, he is almost stunned, and he looks to you and says, "You bear your mother's visage." And the three of them begin to leave the tea house into the rain.
May feels as though she ought to speak, but she is selfishly absorbed in her own thoughts and her own secrets and her own parentage, and barely notices when they leave.
There is an acrid scent here among us. Something is troubling all of you. You look at me as though something is unclear, and I can sense it. What is it that you would ask me? Because there is tension in the way that you move, in the way that your eyes linger, in the way that your hands are too close to your swords.
Hokaiden, after the unicorn had left, had started trying to busy himself eating some of the food that had been brought. And when Mitsukaku asks this very direct question, Hokaiden kind of stops with like a dumpling, like part way to his mouth, and kind of sets it down. Were you involved?
Involved in what? You need to be specific.
He leans in much closer and lowers the volume of his voice and looks in Garu's direction with like no small amount of uncertainty about whether he should proceed, especially in present company, but he decides to anyways. With the death of the Emerald Champion, the previous Emerald Champion.
I don't think I want to know this.
You will have to sleep on the road with this man sitting across from you, watching over you, maybe even while you sleep. As do I.
Mitsukage like sits and he like reaches very slowly for the cup of tea, and he brings his elbow up at a perfect 90-degree angle and takes like an exaggeratedly slow, perfectly formed sip of tea, and then like goes through the same motions and places it down onto the table. It's way too long. It's like obviously a piece of theater. We were all involved in the death of the Emerald Champion. From the farmer flashing through the rice paddies to those at the very top. All of us play a part in this. You think that we of the Scorpion cannot be trusted. We are the only ones who do only as the Emperor asks. Duty is the most important part of Bushido. Samurai means duty above all else. Was I involved? We were all involved. You were involved.
Color has risen in Hokaiden's face, even though he understands the implication of what he's saying. The accusation of being involved in any facet is something that greatly kind of upsets him at his core. And I think he's probably even like tightening his fist so much that you can actually hear like the creak of his skin on itself. And he says, I know some of what a man in your station is capable of, Mitsukage.
You cannot begin to understand what a man in my station is capable of.
Everyone take 3 strife.
That is what I fear. It is the things I do not know about a man like you. That is why I ask. I need to know the man beside me or the woman beside me has my back. That is not going to drive a dagger in it if it is for gain. The things we fought, the things we had to face, I cannot do that if I am having to watch over my shoulder.
Sentimentality is the enemy of duty. We are all tools, weapons, pawns, all of us. We do as we are commanded. That is the only thing that we can do. We are not friends. This is not a surprise to you, surely. We have been brought together through circumstance, and we are left here to work together. None of us would have chosen this. You do not need to be afraid of me, unless I am commanded to kill you. And I would expect that if you were told to kill me, that you would do so. That is your duty. and samurai is duty. And you can tell he's not trying to be manipulative. Like, he just believes this. Like, this is just a fact for him.
Yeah, I think that the cold callousness which Mitsukage is putting this information forward with has definitely caused Hokaiden to fall silent. He's tense, and he looks to Akume, having known her the longest, aside Mitsukage. It doesn't even dawn on him to gauge Garu's reaction in this situation.
Mitsukage, perhaps I could be direct, since that is your preferred method of communication. Is your duty to the Jade Gavel which you bear, or to the clan mask which you wear?
The Emperor. And what comes from the Emperor, what trickles down from him. That is the duty of every Scorpion. I will be your villain, Hante.
Make a culture check or a government check, anybody. Probably Akume primarily, but anyone who feels like they know enough to. Probably not Garu on this one.
One success.
The Emperor seems like a fine answer to that question, I suppose. You take it, what I'm saying is, Akume, you take it how you wish, but there's nothing really to read into here.
Akume nods. These positions assigned to us by the Emperor through the Emerald Champion. Is it not then the Emperor's wish that we should remain in them? That we should remain in service to him?
The Emperor's will is made manifest in the Emerald Champion. The Emerald Champion is Bayushi. And he like looks between all of you for a second, and like, which is so hard for him to like make eye contact. And you can tell like he looks almost immediately away, but he's like doing it as a piece of theater. And he wants to make it clear that like Doji is no longer the Emerald Champion. Things have changed.
Whether we like it or not, the Scorpion Clan champion is now Emerald Champion. So if you worry about the loyalty of Mitsukage here, then you have to worry about the loyalty of the Emerald Champion himself. Again, I've known many Scorpion. I don't know Mitsukage from any other. But they're not disloyal. At least in my experience.
It is easy to say that Scorpions are treacherous, and this is said often, that we cannot be trusted. But we are the only ones who can be trusted to do what is necessary, to do the hard thing, to make the difficult choice, and to ensure that orders are followed and that duty is upheld. There is no personal gain. There is no sense of aggrandizement. It is for the good of the Empire.
And when a Scorpion lands in the vacancy left behind, that is sheer circumstance.
What do you think?
What I think is the reason why we're having this conversation, Mitsukage. And I leave it no more certain than when we started it, I'm afraid, as often with our conversations.
I am clear in who I am and what I do. I serve my duty above all else. Samurai is duty. This cannot be a surprise to you.
Very little about you is a surprise to me, Mitsukage. Not anymore.
He nods at that, but thinks you just have no idea.
The fact is that you three received orders, your final orders from my father to escort me here to Taro, and you have done that. You have delivered me safely and securely to meet with Caillou. I have met with Caillou, and I have rejected his offer to take on a new name, a new identity, and live out the rest of my days on some farm somewhere. As far as I see it, the three of you are free to do whatever you want. I'm a Jade Magistrate now, and I intend to wait for orders from the Emerald Champion.
As do I. He starts eating.
Question for you, Barker.
Okay.
Where is the new Emerald Magistrate located?
The new Emerald Champion?
Emerald Champion, sorry.
Well, let me get Chris Wilhelm on the line. Would that be, in the Scorpion Lands, maybe the home of Doji Shoju, or
I guess it'd be either the capital or like the Scorpion capital. Would be one of those two, would be my guess.
We'll say the capital, but because the emperor has taken ill so suddenly, Bayushi Shoju, Shoju has gone back to the Scorpion capital and is hosting there. So I bet you I can get a... Okay, so the capital's name is Kyuden Bayushi. And I'll type that into the chat for you guys. Thanks for asking.
Akume sits and she looks into the teacup. The last third of the liquid, somewhat translucent, and she can see the tea leaves gathering at the bottom. She looks up to Garu as she knows him. The thought comes to me that the Emerald Champion may not be aware that there is a new Jade Magistrate. You may wait for orders. They will never come. That is a possibility.
I also have no issue living out the rest of my days drinking in this tea house.
Mitsukage sort of sneers behind his mask, but won't say anything at the lack of appreciation and duty of this man.
I don't think that anything escapes the notice of the Scorpion, let alone Scorpion Champion, who now serves as Emerald Champion. And I would look to Mitsukage. Don't you agree?
There is nothing that escapes his notice. The child who plays in the street, the old woman who washes her clothes, the Chen rider, all of it. They all report to him. All eyes are his eyes.
Silence falls around the table.
I must write to him. And he fishes in one of the pockets and pulls out this piece of skin that has the eye tattooed on it. and like places it onto the table. This is unclear. What is this? So I must write to him, and I can ask him what our duty is now that we have brought a doji here.
Hokaiden recoils at the skin being placed on the table and immediately finishes like his meal and pushes the plate away, not wanting to taint himself by taking this food served on the same surface that this death has now touched.
Then I will write to him.
Mitsukage begins penning his letter. And as you sit there in silence, as Mitsukage finishes the scrawl, you hear a disturbance coming from outside. It's almost like the wave of people. The sound was dulled by this peaceful city, this peaceful village. And now it sounds like someone is yelling at, they're yelling words like, "Don't just stop, move it! Move, pick back to your post! Pick up the cart, go!" Just someone maybe perhaps yelling at a servant. A cart caught in the mud, perhaps. The rain has picked up, so. And Mitsukage, you finish your letter.
Yeah. Ostensibly, if anyone was to read it, will say something like, "Lord, all is well. Things go as expected. We discovered some slaves. They had this mark upon them. We have recently encountered a new Jade Magistrate. Loyally yours, Mitsukage." But in reality, it's incredibly like detailed and a sort of like codex, like cryptic letters here and there. And if you like take the letters in certain parts and the symbols here and there, and you move them in different places, like the message is clear, which I'll send to you separately, Barker.
Perfect. Some of you feel like you might have lost your taste for tea.
Yeah, Hokaiden would have stood up from the table after after the table was sullied, and will be making his way to the kind of the back of the establishment and trying to find a little more food to actually eat. Once he gets, a handful of something, more dumplings, he makes his way to the door and is kind of standing in the doorway, watching the rain kind of pour down on this city, and just kind of seeing what's going on with the festivities.
You look up towards the festivities and you see that cart and that perhaps, I don't know what the word, a lord yelling at their servant to get it moving, but they seem to be, they're a little bit distant, but as you begin wondering what's keeping this servant from doing their duty, you notice that the puddles around you are growing black. And as you hold your hand out to the rain, perhaps you see that the droplets that fall upon it are black as well. And then you look up from your hand across the Taro River, across the narrow bridge that's just packed with people waving banners of different clans, is a mountain range, unscalable perhaps, except by this huge plume of black clouds emerging over the top of it. The slave, as you look back right to the right towards this cart, is staring directly at the sky. You begin to hear screams coming from the festivities.
He's had his hand held out, and the first few drops hit, and he realizes that it's black. He once again recoils his hand with this cold stone kind of dropping into the pit of his stomach. This kind of thing is incredibly reminiscent of the stuff that he has seen on the Caillou wall and from the Shadowlands. So he's instantly mistrustful of it. He kind of takes a few staggering steps back and actually, I think, catches the back of his heel on a stool. And as he does so, he tries to throw his other leg back to catch his weight, and there's a jolt of pain up through his back. And instead, he seizes up and falls backwards and actually shatters a table under his weight.
Hearing this commotion, Garu would sort of stand up quickly from the table, his hands going to the kama holstered at his back, and then seeing Hokaiden sort of laying on the ground, he would rush forward to help him up. Are you okay?
He kind of stands embarrassed about the situation, and instead just kind of looks down at his hand where these small, like, black runs of liquid are kind of pooling off of his palm, and he just kind of shows it towards Garu. The rain is black.
Hokaiden, do not go in the rain.
No.
There is something very wrong here. I have not felt this in many moons, not since we faced the Oni.
There's an Oni outside?
I do not know.
That's what it sounds like you're saying.
There is something powerful and dark, and it is coming.
Gaiden reaches down and places his hand on the hilt of his katana and kind of backs up to where the others are seated at the table still, waiting, watching the front door.
You'd see Akume. She had stood up at your fall, and she now sits down perfectly still. And she begins to put her fingers together and pull them apart, and then her palms and apart. And there's the slightest bit of energy every time she puts her hands together and apart. And the ring on each finger glows slightly, and she does it 5 times. And she's going to attempt to meditate to try and discern what it is that's coming, if she can.
Sure. Give me a meditation check. With advantage.
What does advantage mean?
Nothing.
Okay.
It's just a dumb D&D.
Tossing a Benny from Savage Worlds in there. See that?
Yeah. Pull a Jenga block while you're at it if you want to set up a tower.
Okay, so
You quiet your mind. Knock on the sky, listen to the sound.
3 successes and an opportunity.
Oh. Yes. That thing said it wasn't the only one. The Oni said there would be more. He even congratulated you on your victory that day. The time is now for Taro. The Northlands, maybe they can wait. But for Taro, their time to join the shadow is now. Wind blows through the tea house, turning over overturned stools that aren't broken or already overturned, sweeping plates of food onto the floor. It's difficult to stand. You kind of have to angle yourself to protect yourself or step out of the wind tunnel entirely. But as soon as you do it, actually, there are pieces of the tea house exterior, these wooden planks that begin flying off, ripping in half in the powers of the winds and heading straight at you. So everybody do me a favor and roll a fitness to attempt to avoid being struck by these shards of Goba's tea house. The screams of the people outside are drowned by the sound of wind, and you see the black cloud pouring down the mountain. The mountain is almost completely obscured now. The shards of wood and splinters fly all around Akume. Majestically so. But she wasn't completely without protection. Garu and Hokkaidan, go ahead.
Garu is trained in Crescent Moon style, which is a very reactive martial art. And as these wooden planks and this wind begins buffeting the tea house, Garu finds himself in his element, facing down a storm. His job is steering ships through storms, and as the wind begins howling through the tea house, he situates himself in front of Akume, not sure exactly what she's doing, but knowing that she is doing something important, completely out of the scope of his experience. And he pulls out his 2-kama, and using this Crescent Moon style, every piece of wood that flies toward them is swatted aside by one of these kama blades, as he deftly protects his companion.
Gaiden, having somewhat prepared himself, but uncertain of what, falls into step with Garu, also trying to protect Akume as best as he can, knowing that whatever it is that she's doing is likely keeping them alive. And he also draws his weapon, this katana, and has struck one or two stools that have been flying about. And in one in particular, this, like you said, this facing of this building has been thrown through, actually tearing a hole through the rice paper door. And Hokkaidan kind of rolls to the side to step directly in the path of this flying beam and just extends his katana out in front of him, blade facing this piece of wood, as it hits straight on and splinters into two pieces and embeds itself into parts of the building on either side of him and Akume.
You all definitely avoid the onslaught of rubble and pieces of this tea house. Mitsukage, how do you avoid getting struck?
So his first thought is when the magic appears to move away from Akume, because the things that are magical will target her. And so his first thought is to like move away from the table and away from them and like crouch down behind the bar. I imagine that there's like a pretty displeased sort of bar person like shouting or whatever, and he just like silences them with a look and like crouches down behind the bar, putting his back against it and like waiting to see what happens.
in a matter of moments, Akume, you feel the light from outside. Despite the fact that it was dim and cloudy, it was still lit, and you feel it around you. You know that entire wall has been destroyed, and that the Teahouse is now crumbling all around you.
Akume is sitting with her eyes closed. Her sleeves and ribbons and sash and hair are blowing in this storm. The two white streaks of her hair whipping around wildly. And she is dangerously reaching out to feel for this creature, to try and locate it. And once she understands what it is, her mismatched eyes, one gold, one brown, open. It is another Oni. Prepare yourselves.
Where? Where?
The clouds of darkness begin rolling down into the city of Taro. They hover over the sky a bit, over the bridge, and then suddenly, after a small, brief bout of quiet, lash downward at seemingly in a random pattern on certain people, and digs itself into their eyes, into their mouth, taking control of their bodies. You notice that the servant up the road, first of all these houses and huts are now destroyed. The servant is being engulfed by this same black magic, this same shadow, this magic of shadow origin, and you see the bridge begin to crumble underneath those people, and that is where we're going to leave off. But I'd say the last thing you see are 3 funnel clouds emerging down from this black cloud. And in those 3 epicenters, as they touch the ground, you see the forms, the shapes of a person in each of them. They look to be hovering above the water of the river a bit and staring directly at you, Garu. You can feel it. You see in your mind a flash of an eye. And you see the shapes of these 3, void of light, void of anything. Darker than darkness itself. You look towards Hokkaiden's Jade Gavel and you see it's beginning to turn black. And you see that these beings, their outlines show that they are armed and armored. And they begin moving towards you. And that's where we're going to end. All right. Thanks, guys. That was a lot of fun. There were
Cannot wait to get killed by those guys next session.
I am running away.
Mitsukage, let me hide behind the bar.
I roll to flee.
Getting some very Big Trouble in Little China feels here.
Dude, I thought the same thing. I was like, are they going to have big hats?
Oh, man, I can't wait.
Barker, that was great. Thank you so much.
Honestly, I feel like it was great because of all of you. There were 2 times, more than 2 times, but there were 2 times in particular that I can remember where I was just sitting here for 30 minutes, on mute, listening to my cat meow, and nibbling on peanuts. I wish I had popcorn. It was really amazing watching you guys work out these natural conflicts that just came about because of the change in Emerald Champion. And I was totally surprised by Garu's final stance of, listen, I'm going to sit here and await orders from the new Emerald Champion, no matter who they are. Akume, the tea leaves and the teacup was so cool that I was like, what is she going to leave behind? Maybe a weapon, maybe a piece of gear. But it's just like, oh man, a story-driven thing. That was awesome. Hokkaido, the jabs against Mitsukage. Listen, Lloyd, you are probably the most cunning and witty person I know. And so well done, Lloyd, in that whole exchange. Jeremy, way to hold your own while still representing your character really well. It was really fun to watch. And thank you guys for joining us. I think the next session is going to be a little bit longer than this one was, because on my notes there we could have gone a little bit longer, but I don't want to go deep past 9:30 at all. But we'll make do, and I'm really excited for the next session, which will be called something like the Invasion of the Shadowlands or something like that.
Title pending.
Yep. So thanks everybody for tuning in. I'm gonna go from my left to right. If anyone wants to say anything or plug anything or make a goofy sound or whatever, we're gonna start with Lloyd. All right, we're gonna move on to Jeremy.
What's into the game?
All right, next up is Matt Click. And Taylor Jeffrey.
I'm out of my element.
Thanks everybody for tuning in. Double tap peace or whatnot. I can't remember. Was that it? Or whatnot? Or one of the. Yep. Okay, sure. That's fine.